This is the MFG Monkey podcast. We sit down with leaders and innovators in the industry to talk about manufacturing, business, and the stories behind their successes. I'm your host, Dustin McMillan, owner and founder of McMillan Co. Today we have Whitney Hahn on the MFG Monkey. Whitney is a seasoned business advisor with over 2 decades of leadership and sales enablement know-how. She is the expert that small business leaders turn to when they are hungry to provoke better returns from their hard work. Whitney's approach is empathetic, energetic, and full of tough love. With Whitney's guidance and proven framework, navigating business growth becomes simpler, more efficient, and a lot more fun. Ready to optimize your business for revenue and time? Whitney is here to guide you.
Whitney Hahn, how are you?
I'm great, Dustin. How are you?
I'm doing very well. Thank you so much for joining me today. It's going to be fun.
It's always fun. I love talking about this stuff.
Yeah, no, so do I. That's why I'm a nerd sitting in my house doing podcasts. So I don't know. I found it fun over the last several years.
I'm glad it's because you find it fun and not because you're stuck in your house as part of your witness protection program or
I'm not going to talk about that. Yeah, undisclosed location. But no, I think it's, it's interesting. We kind of chatted before, and one of the big topics today is recruitment and how to recruit and what to do and what not to do. And I think so many of us struggle with finding good people, and we have a huge, and it's part of our culture. We will wait to hire the right person than just hiring a body because we need somebody. And
I agree with that. Yeah, you should have the right person. Absolutely.
Yeah. So culture is number one for us. And if we have to wait, we wait.
I think it's really responsible for you to have that sort of perspective. Culture is huge. And I don't think although we've talked about it a lot across lots of industries, I still think many companies don't fully appreciate what that means. When you say, well, I've got good culture, does it mean I've got a ping pong table in the break room? Does
Right.
it mean I allow you to flex hours? Does it mean I say please and thank you? Like, what is it actually? And you have to have a good sense of what your culture is for you to convey that culture in your recruiting and then become a magnet for those right fit candidates.
Yeah. And if your culture's correct, all of your people are the best because they want to interview folks coming in because they don't want somebody coming from the outside interrupting or being a cancer and ruining their culture.
Yeah, I think we've unfortunately all been in an organization where there's a hotshot ass clown. Can I say that on you?
No, that's awesome. I love it. Yeah.
And if you don't know that person, you may have been that person. But it's somebody that even though they may be highly skilled or highly effective at making a sale or making the thing, if they're just a nuisance to work with, it's really destructive.
Yeah, I have a buddy that they have a sales guy that's been with them for years. He makes over $1 million a year, and he does obviously damn well. But he comes in and everyone cringes. He like sucks the oxygen right out of the office, and he goes, "What the hell do we do with this guy?" He's been with us for 40 years or whatever. He's just old and grouchy, but he just pisses everyone off. It's like, well, the sales aren't going away, or very few of them are. So my suggestion was to get rid of the guy.
I think you're correct. I think there's a way to teach the best structures or frameworks that successful salesperson might do to be successful in sales, while eliminating the destructive aspects of that individual's personality.
Yeah, and I self-admittedly, I had to go through some of that because that's how I grew up, was in sales, and I would become a nightmare if things didn't happen in the time frame that I thought that they should happen in. And it was through a lot of self-reflection and just understanding myself that there's it's better to handle things with butter than guns, and you get a hell of a lot more done with with sugar. So I definitely went through that period in my life where, I was just crazy driven. And if somebody's going to mess up my paycheck, I was not okay with it. But I also became, I wasn't good for the company in the same aspect.
It takes a great deal of self-reflection and awareness to catch that in yourself, and I applaud you for doing that. And again, that's work that a lot of people won't do, and a lot of companies, including ones with otherwise very strong HR departments, just seem afraid to touch. And I'm still not exactly sure why, because there's a mounting body of evidence about how destructive it really is. I think what is happening at its core, Dustin, is we're giving up. As a company, we're giving up what we want most, a healthy, productive, engaged culture, for what we want now, which in our example so far has been somebody who can sell $1 million a year.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so it's really endangering the long-term health and sustainability of the organization when that's left unchecked.
Yeah, and anytime you get blind by the dollars and you ignore happiness, I don't care what you're doing. You could be cutting hair, and if you're cutting some asshole's hair just because you want the money, and you don't get rid of that that cancer of a client, then your long-term happiness is going to it's just going to be affected. And same thing with customers. We've gotten rid of customers because they just suck the energy out of everyone. It's like, okay, we're good. We don't need to do business with you.
Oh yeah.
And that's part of culture too.
It is. And that is one of the most powerful things that you can do. If you can, quote unquote, fire a customer that just sucks the life out of you. I remember years ago, I had one of these customers. He was always trying to renegotiate the contract, even in the middle of the project. He was generous with criticism, but stingy with praise.
Oh, yeah.
And it got to be where I would see his name and phone number show up on the caller ID, and I could feel my blood pressure rise even before I answered the call.
Yeah.
And I said to myself at that moment, I was like, Whitney, this is not a healthy relationship. You need to end this with as much grace and professionalism as possible, and you need to do it soon. Yeah. So we had a bit of a heart-to-heart where I wasn't mean. I just said, we're not able to do our best work for you. And so we're going to finish this project. We're going to package up all your files and make sure that you have it to give to the next person that takes care of you. We didn't want to handcuff him in any way.
Sure.
And did a bless and release, basically, back into the ecosystem because it just wasn't working.
How long did it take you to come to that decision to let him go?
When I made the association that even seeing his number on the caller ID caused my blood pressure to rise, it happened not that conversation, but the very next conversation.
Good.
And that I just said, this has to end. And I took a few days to figure out how I wanted to end it professionally, politely. And then I proactively reached out and said, here's what's going to happen.
That's awesome. Same group of friends. We have a woman, and she self-made, has a marketing company. They're crushing it, and she self-admittedly hasn't been able to find a positive woman that's in her same like C-level arena that she can talk to about those things as a friend. And she's been, I want to use the word needy, and she's going to kick my ass for it. But, she found this woman that she met with, and the very first meeting, this lady tears her apart and is being super critical and toxic. And then she was talking to us about that, and we're like, and you're still talking to this woman? She's like, well, yeah, because I thought that I could fix her. And then she's brought a couple clients to us, and they're just as bad as she is. And we're like, you got to get the hell rid of this whole clan. And we're like, well, what's that doing to your team? They're like, oh, my team hates dealing with everyone. And I'm like, that's part of culture too. And And I think if she would keep them on, she would have people start questioning, what the hell she's doing. And I know that I would, and it's like keeping a bad employee, right? If you're
Yes.
willing to put up with some person's BS, it's going to affect everyone.
Yeah, exactly. I love that you brought that up, Dustin, because it is another area that we often don't highlight. We'll put up with that
Mm-hmm.
destructive, depleting employee. We'll put up with a destructive, depleting client. But then we look
Right.
at our core team, the people that we count on to get work done day in and day out, the people we count on to have our backs if we're in leadership or at the top of near the top of the organization.
Right.
And we say, but you got to put up with this garbage too. What we should be doing is being the shield against that sort of nonsense. We should be
Yeah.
protecting the people that we count on to have our back every day instead of asking them to come through the mud with us just to get the money that's on the other side. I mean, we cannot prostitute our teams like that and
Right.
expect that they're going to rise to the occasion and be Cinderella. It just doesn't happen
Yeah.
that way. It's a ridiculous expectation and it needs to stop.
Yeah, and I can't agree more. And you have to cut it out swiftly. Uh, I mean, you just have to. You just have to. And we've had to do it, unfortunately, where we brought somebody in and we're like, okay, we can coach this person up. We're about building people up too. You don't have to be perfect, but quickly, if they become toxic and everyone just doesn't enjoy life, then they got to go quick.
Definitely. Definitely. I've been in a leadership role at many organizations pretty much my entire adult professional life. I'm just
Yeah.
a natural leader. Some people would say bossy, but I'm not going to say that. I'm going to choose to say natural leader. And I can teach almost anybody, almost any skill that they're curious about learning. But I
Sure.
got to be honest with you, I have yet to be the sort of person who can make somebody who is just a bad apple at the core change into a good person.
Yeah.
If you're
And,
somebody who is just toxic, if you have an unhealthy level of competition, if you come into my workplace with a me versus them mentality towards your coworkers, I have to succeed, and for me to succeed means you have to fail. If it's all about me, I don't know how to manage away from that. Like that person would need to do perhaps what you did and self-reflect, and that change has to come from within.
oh yeah. And yeah, there's like four different things I wanted to say, and they all meshed and then poof. Um, yes, I can't agree more. One of the things that was kicking around my head as I watched a clip on TV show Undercover Boss. Have
Yeah,
you seen that?
it's a great show.
Great. Yeah, it's a wonderful show, and I was just going through, and it's very applicable to what we're talking about right now. Is there's like a 3-part series on social media that I was stuck on, and this girl was the most toxic person that I've ever seen in a workplace. She was criticizing customers that were coming in. She was criticizing coworkers. The undercover boss, the CEO of this whole franchise, she was criticizing him to the point that he walked out early, and she like made fun of him on his way out of the door. And then in the final clip or whatever, they approached her and brought the franchise owner in, and somehow the franchise owner was completely oblivious of how she treated everyone.
Wow.
And not only that, she was in complete denial that she was doing anything wrong at all whatsoever. And it's how, like, if you would watch the video, like if she watches the video and she's still in denial, like how do you get past that? Or does she ever? Is she just a bitter person for the rest of her life that lives alone with 17 cats? I don't know.
She may be a bitter person for the rest of her life. And
Yeah.
I would like to think that individuals like that can be rehabilitated, if you will.
Sure.
However, they're the ones that have to start it. We're getting into a wider conversation about
Oh yeah.
personalities and how set
Yeah,
they are or how
absolutely.
flexible they are. But
Yeah.
I think it's safe to say that any significant change like that has to come from within. If you have a set point of
Yeah.
scarcity, you're going to operate from scarcity. If you have a
Yeah.
set point of negative competition, you're going to operate from that set point. And
Yeah.
so you will need to marinate a person like that, I should say, will need to marinate in a whole
Yeah.
lot of different mindset in order to grow a different set of habits.
Yeah. And it's, the other end of psychology is nobody can make yourself happy except for you. And if you're just a mean,
Yes.
bitter, upset, vindictive person and you don't see that there's anything wrong with it, then you're just going to stay that way.
Man, I was not expecting the deep dive into the soul with you today, Dustin. I thought we were going to
Me
talk
either,
about recruitment for manufacturers.
We're getting there. We're getting there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, sometimes I scroll out and go down a rabbit hole, and I don't know, that's what it's about, right?
Being human.
Anyways, so I guess we can kind of get back on track here with recruiting and how you see that process and how you coach others to recruit.
Recruitment, as you've set a beautiful stage for, really is about culture fit and also mission fit. If we went back almost 100 years coming out of the Great Depression, for example, when jobs were scarce, you could probably offer to pay somebody in spit, insults, and 4-day-old bread, and there'd still be a line for that available job. But we're not in that environment now.
Yeah.
And in fact, if you went back 10 years or 15 years when the unemployment rate was still not at depression levels, but higher than we would like levels, a lot of competition for jobs. And so you could put out an ad that said, oh, we start at $17 an hour, and a manufacturing company across town could put out an ad for a similar job and say we pay $17.10 an hour, and you'd be trying to get people to apply for your open positions based on simply the hourly rate. Yep. Those times have passed, Dustin, but many organizations are still advertising in the same way.
Right.
What we need to do instead is really put out culture and mission fit and then back it up. What we need to be doing is putting out our ads based on culture and mission fit and then backing it up with competitive salary and benefits packages.
That's a very interesting thought. And I don't even know what all platforms we, put recruitment out, LinkedIn, Indeed, maybe. But are you able to upload like a video on any of those platforms? I mean, LinkedIn, obviously, we could upload a video of, the hiring manager talking about different things, or do a recruiting video that would talk about those things.
You certainly could. And a lot of the sites like ZipRecruiter and Indeed, you can, at a minimum, you can put a hyperlink to videos that help you explain culture, fit, and mission of the organization as well. But let me come back to that part in a moment, because I have a great example from a beer manufacturer who did that at a not safe for work level, but is so fun and effective. Before you get people to watch the video, though, you got to think about the headline that you use for the ads. So again, going back to the example, if you're saying $17 an hour, $17.10 an hour, $17.25 an hour, and that's your headline, you're going to be getting people who are only interested in a starting salary or a 90-day bonus or something like that.
Yeah.
And what do you think is going to happen then as soon as your crosstown rival puts the same ad out with another $100 on the signing bonus and another 12 cents an hour on top of the hourly rate?
Yeah.
That employee is going to jump job for the next highest paycheck. There's no loyalty to you because you haven't given them any reason to be loyal to the culture or the mission of the organization. Why are we surprised when they jump? Yeah.
And I have a buddy that owns a large manufacturing company, and, he shops at the same Kroger as most of his employees. He's like, do you think the Japanese company down the street, their CEO is talking to you in the bread aisle for 20 minutes or, saying hi, or they know your name even? They want you to wear, a certain outfit every day, and they don't want you to, talk to anyone, and they just want you to be a robot. And that means so much to him in that area because they are one of the most economical backbones. And everyone knows that, this guy knows their name, and it's not made up. And it's really, really neat to watch him walk the floor. And he got to the point as CEO, he's like, my job is just recruitment and making sure our culture's good. He's like, we have people that read P&Ls and make sales decisions and, figure tooling out and all that stuff. He's like, my most important job is making sure we have good people. And I thought that was pretty profound.
I think he's absolutely right too. I'm sure he has
Yeah,
other responsibilities in terms of setting
sure.
long-term vision and things like that.
Yeah,
At the same
absolutely.
time, I think many CEOs haven't done what this individual has done and recognize that them setting up a
Right.
good company culture and engaging with the employees at all
Yeah,
levels is also a critical part of being a really effective
yeah.
CEO.
And that's probably the most important long-term vision you can have is your people.
Definitely. Definitely.
Yeah,
We're automating more and more. Somebody still has to
yeah,
program the automation.
absolutely. Yeah,
Uh,
and we're in the automation that we're doing is getting rid of, the hourly wage um, type of a person that's only there for, the $17 an hour, the 17.25 an hour. But you're bringing on a more sophisticated person that can program and make sure it's up and running and troubleshoot when it goes down and all
right.
those things. What are some of the other things that companies can do to make sure that they're conveying culture before somebody even applies?
Before we talk about culture a little bit more, let me take one step back to talk about mission alignment.
Okay.
We need to be making sure that the employee understands how he or she will succeed when they come to work at our company, rather than merely thinking about and talking about how the company will succeed because the employee is there. And I've got a real life example to show you how this works. A few years ago, Provoke Better worked with a steel manufacturer. They were needing welders and fitters like pretty much every steel manufacturer ever since the history of time has needed. And they were in an area of the country that had two other major steel manufacturers in basically the same town, super close proximity. So the job force was pretty small, and the competition for really well qualified welders and fitters was high. So I did an analysis. I assessed their ads versus their competitors' ads. I assessed their Glassdoor reviews versus their competitors, which of course is where your employees can comment as to whether or not you're a good employer or not. And what I found was that pretty much everybody was talking about the same stuff. This $17 an hour, $17.50 an hour, $500 signing bonus, $600 signing bonus type stuff. It wasn't getting them any place.
All right, third time's a charm, I think.
Okie dokie.
So you were saying some pretty awesome stuff that I do think it was getting recorded, but I couldn't hear, and you were on your roll. So let's try and pick up
Yeah.
there.
I'll start that story over again
Okay.
about the steel manufacturer that I worked with, just so you have the full context for going forward. So
Perfect. Thank you.
let me rewind in my head and let me pick it up there. And Luke, you're gonna get extra credit, extra serving of tater tots for Luke this week. Thanks, man.
I like tater tots.
Who doesn't? Dustin, maybe it'd be helpful if I gave you an example from a manufacturer that Provoke Better worked with for recruiting just a few years ago.
Absolutely.
Okay, so the manufacturer works in the steel industry, and their main location is in the same city with two other steel manufacturers. So competition for talent is very high. They're looking for welders and fitters.
Okay.
Welders and fitters, welders and fitters. Like all day long, this is what they need. So the first thing we did is we analyzed their ads versus their competitors' ads. And we saw exactly what you and I have been talking about in today's conversation. $17 an hour versus $17.50 an hour, 18, whatever it is. $500 signing bonus, $600 signing bonus. I mean, it was just slap a new number on it, run the ad again, and see if you can get any new talent. And it wasn't working. Shocker, right? Hold on to your hat, because that was not working. And so we said, all right, let's make sure that we understand what your ideal employee really cares about when they come to work for your company, not just any steel manufacturer. Why this one, not anyone? And that's the first question that I want any organization to ask themselves. Why does this individual, this candidate, want to work here, not just anywhere?
Very good.
And so to get to the core of that ideal employee mindset, we asked real employees what they loved about the company.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you choose to work here? You've got competition right across town who I'm sure would be happy to have somebody with your career experience. Why don't you leave?
Right.
And through those conversations, we heard a couple of things. We heard about career advancement. We heard about sense of camaraderie they had with a buddy that, they kind of grew up together in the industry. That's very powerful as well. But that's hard to replicate. And so we were listening for something that would be attractive to somebody that was qualified but wanted a new mission. Somebody who could see themselves being successful in this organization, not just any organization. Someone who aligned with what this company was trying to, in their case, quite literally build. Because this steel manufacturer had done some very high-profile jobs. Now, for reasons of, honoring non-disclosure and things like that, I can't be too specific.
Sure.
But they would be buildings you would recognize. It's the wing of a major airport. It's the wing of a children's hospital. It's a huge sports arena in a major southern city.
Okay.
It's a sky rise in downtown Manhattan.
Okay.
During one of the interviews, one of the employees said something that really seemed to encapsulate this core mission idea. He said, sometimes I will drive home a different way just so I can look at the buildings that we've been working on.
That's cool.
And that sense of pride and craftsmanship, Dustin, that is mission.
Yeah, absolutely.
That is how this craftsperson, this welder fitter, felt successful, felt like they were the hero of their own story.
Yep.
And so we completely rewrote their recruitment campaign, not to talk about starting salaries and signing bonuses, but to talk about how they could be part of building the structures that define cities and skylines for generations.
Yeah, that's outstanding.
Ooh,
yeah.
That just
Gives me the chills.
Moment, right?
Well, and that same person, he takes a different way home, but he's also either, if he has a family, he's driving his family around, showing his wife or daughter, son, or maybe he's not, but he's still driving his buddies around and going, hey, I built that. I had a part of that. I worked on that floor or whatever it is. Yeah, that's super cool.
It is that sense of mission that you need to tap into for recruitment. And it works equally well for manufacturers as it does for nonprofit organizations, as it does for a retail store.
Absolutely.
My mom and dad run their own business too. They're in their early 80s. They're still running their own business. Frankly, I give them grief every chance I get. I'm like, are you guys going to retire sometime soon? Because I will eventually want to retire, and it's going to look really bad for me if I retire before you do. So can we just talk about that?
Right.
And what they do, this is a true story. My family owns a zoo.
Okay.
Yeah. So those are my monkeys. This is my zoo.
Can you tell us what zoo?
Yeah, sure. It's Catoctin Wildlife Preserve, just outside of Washington, D.C.
That's outstanding. That's
Ran
really
since
cool.
1966.
Wow.
Yeah, incredible experience.
Yeah.
But I tell you what, if you want to recruit somebody to work in animal care at a zoo, and your ad says you will shovel poop all day, you will go home smelling like all sorts of things that you cannot explain.
Right.
You will work when it's extremely hot. You will work when it's extremely cold, and you're never going to make $1 million. You will not have people line up for that.
Sure.
You have to tap into mission.
Yeah.
So if instead you're saying, I'm not hiring for poop scoopers, which honestly is a huge part of the job in animal care. It's a lot of cleaning. It's a lot of carrying heavy buckets of water and grain and
I can only imagine.
Yeah. But if you don't talk about that, although that's part of the job, but you align with mission about helping protect and preserve these endangered species from all around the world and introduce guests to these animal ambassadors, ding, 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 ding. Now you're having a different conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's probably, you can pour more emotional heartstrings with the zoo than you can a welder.
I disagree. Because that guy we just described, who was going to be super happy taking his family, taking his buddies past the wing of the children's hospital and through that sports arena that we talked about, that person would not be mission aligned, culturally aligned,
right?
Probably, right?
True.
To protecting endangered species.
Yeah.
And that's the point.
Yeah.
A great recruitment campaign needs to be a magnet to the right candidates, but repel the wrong candidates.
Mm-hmm.
It has to do both.
Well, and I think, in that situation, if the wrong person comes to the table, they're not going to be comfortable. I wouldn't think, maybe. I mean, if somebody is like, I really don't give a shit about being a part of something bigger, and I just, I want the $20 an hour instead of 17. They're going to ask that question in interview one. How much? Okay, that's great, but how much am I getting paid? How much time off do I get day one? They're going to start asking all the wrong questions that you can weed that person out pretty quickly, I would think.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, let's be honest. The organizations still have to be competitive with salary and benefits. You can't expect people to just not be able to meet their own needs because they're so mission aligned. They're willing to give up everything. However, if you're able to meet their needs financially and your mission aligned and your culture aligned, wow, that is somebody who's going to grow with your organization and help your organization grow in return. And that is what we're looking for, right? That's the perfect match.
Absolutely. And I'm sure you know the answer to this question, but where does salary or pay come in on a scale of 1 to 10 of importance to a team member?
Well, I have less data on where that plays in recruiting and more data on where it plays in retention.
Okay.
And it's about third or fourth on the list.
Yeah.
When employees are asked after exit why they exited, it's usually not about salary as one of the top three answers.
Yeah.
That usually comes up at 4 or 5. Top 3 have to do with exactly what we've been talking about: poor culture fit, poor leadership, or miscommunication of expectations.
Yeah. Yeah, and I can see that if you think you're hired for one job and you're doing another, then you probably get frustrated pretty easily.
Well, yeah, because you thought you were going to be successful doing a certain thing.
Yeah.
And in fact, then the thing changes and you can't be as successful.
Right.
We have to remember that employees, all of us, we want to be the hero of our own story.
Mm-hmm.
And if we don't feel we can be a hero, we don't want to be a victim.
Yeah.
And so that's when we're going to leave that organization.
Yeah. Yeah. I can certainly see that. And it'd be interesting to understand the data behind recruitment and where salary falls in, just because I'm, a geek and I would like to know that. I would be willing to bet a large sum of money that's not number one.
I would think that you're right.
Yeah.
I think that you're right. I think it is. Salary is probably a high motivator for short-term jobs.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm just looking for a summer gig, I can put up with anything for 3 months before I go back to school, right?
Yeah.
You're looking at entry-level jobs or something like
Yeah.
that. Where if I'm brand new to a city and I just need to find a job quickly because I have immediate expenses, that's when I'm going to go for the job that meets my immediate financial needs.
Yeah.
But if you're in an industry like many manufacturers where the experience level with that piece of equipment or with that technique or with that craft goes up and up and up the longer you're in that role, then you want people who are not just there for the summer job, who are not just there for the quick paycheck. You want people who will grow with the organization as they help the organization grow in return.
Yeah, and I could even, where I'm at right now, it's a very seasonal area. And I would think that culture for summer workers would be massive as well. Because you're going to be able to recruit people. And there are so many places around here you go in and they don't have the staff and 50% of their tables are empty, but there's a 45-minute line waiting. And it's like, what the hell is going on here? But you can, take a short boat ride somewhere or go to the next restaurant and they're banging. I mean, they have all the staff, they're pumping tables out and everyone's happy. And you got to think, well, this place they have to have something going on. It's not because the place is beautiful. The clientele is the same clientele as this place versus that place, but there's something going on with their culture now that we're talking about that I would think would hold true, where there's something in that nucleus is not allowing them to recruit the summer help that they need. So they're, to the bottom line, that means that they're struggling as a company because they can't figure the culture out.
Anytime we don't have the employees that we need to fulfill the capacity that is asked of us, it's limiting what that company can put out. And it's exactly the same if you're in a restaurant and you don't have enough server staff as it would be in a manufacturer.
Oh, certainly.
If you don't have enough people to help you manufacture the things that you're doing.
Yeah. And if
one of our other clients, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, if you can't if you can't get the widgets out, I don't care what you're making, you're going to lose that customer.
Absolutely. And you'll hesitate to take the next great contract for the same reason.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
One of the clients we're working with right now, they've been an advisory client of ours for a little over a year, works in panel manufacturing.
Okay.
So they work in automation, highly complex systems. They custom make panels. The panels go in and they run the automation to make lots of different systems safer, faster, and more effective.
Okay.
And they were capped at the number of projects they could take in and successfully fulfill because they didn't have enough people to help them.
Mm-hmm.
So the first thing we had to do was help them make sure that they had a good recruitment plan in place. Then once the recruitment plan was successful, and that worked pretty quickly, then they needed a good, solid onboarding plan. Mm-hmm. So these, in some cases, career entry-level folks could be successful as quickly as possible. And while they had experienced people in the company, those experienced people had a hard time translating their years of experience to a new person and helping that new person be successful as quickly as possible. So the second thing, if you're not thinking about it already, behind a great recruitment plan is a great onboarding plan. What's the first 90 days of somebody's journey with this company going to be like? And don't just say, well, we take the first day, we do safety orientation, and then the second day is, here's the break room. And okay, that's table stakes.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
How are you going to help me get up to speed? What's the plan? How will I have a progressive learning path towards mastering this portion of my job?
Mm-hmm.
Because that's what I want as a new employee. I want to be successful. I don't want to struggle.
Yeah. And I think that that's important for the employees to ask that question. Or, on the flip side, if you're going after new business, I think it's important to even talk about in your presentation to your customer if you're going to take on a significant amount of new business, and they're asking, well, do you have enough employees currently to handle that? Well, no, hell no, we don't, because it's a big chunk of business, and we're going to have to recruit, but this is how we're going to recruit, and this is what we offer, and this is how we get people. This is why we don't have trouble getting people, and this is why we can keep them. But yeah, that's an interesting thought, just on capturing new business that really exceeds your capacity.
You have to be able to fulfill it, because if you are just phoning it in on the work that you do,
mm-hmm.
your clients are going to be happy. They're not going to come back to you. Nope. That negative word of mouth is going to spread, and that is a death toll. And it may not be fast, but it will happen.
Yeah.
You can't sustain a business that way.
What are some? We've talked about so many great things that companies should be doing. What are probably your top 5 of things that companies absolutely should not be doing that get overlooked that they still do?
With regard to employees?
Yeah, in recruiting or just retention.
Well, we talked about a couple already. So don't lead with what the salary or bonus requirements are, because you're kind of missing the point. Don't let the new individual flounder for the first 90 days without a really solid onboarding plan. And the onboarding plan should be progressive, and it should be attainable, and it should be something that there are on the floor mentors for to help this individual succeed. A lot of manufacturers, like a lot of businesses, retail, I've seen this a lot in too, they do at the elbow training, which is totally fine. Mm-hmm. Be sure it's the right elbow. Be sure it's the right training.
Yeah.
Give some thought to that.
Yeah.
And then, this is where the cliff often happens. Once they finish that first 90 days, make sure they know about the next 90 days and the 90 days after that and the 90 days after that. Justin, if you look at the statistics for this industry, for manufacturing industry, you will see a huge drop off in employee count at retention after the first 90 days. I think in part because of some of these 90-day bonuses.
Yeah.
They'll work to the 90-day bonus, they'll pay it out, and then they're jumping ship. They're going for the next bonus. And then you'll see another cliff after the first year and another cliff after 18 months to 2 years. So it gets a little soft. The data gets a little soft in there. So if you can keep them past the first 90 days and you want to keep them longer than that, what you need to do then is give them a vision, a continued vision for where they can continue to grow in their mastery of their craft.
Mm-hmm.
I was working with a beautiful, delightful young woman in a manufacturing facility, and her specialty was the automated arm that came and picked up a case of this and moved it to the shipping area and did it over and over and over.
Okay.
She called it her boyfriend. That robot was her boyfriend.
Yeah.
Because she spent so much time with it, because she gave it commands that it followed.
Yeah.
Which I don't know if every boyfriend does that.
Probably every one of them.
Yeah. But she was very proud that she could get her boyfriend to dance if that's what she wanted it to do.
Right.
You know, this is a big piece of machinery. It could be very dangerous if she doesn't feel like she is mastering the controls that she's in charge of. But she absolutely did, and she just lit up talking about her quote unquote boyfriend and all the things that she did, and how she not only became a master of it herself, but was then helping new people work to be automation masters, controlling this giant, massive robot arm that was moving things around. And that made her the hero of her own story.
Sure.
She was really excited about that. So continue to give individuals the vision of where their career could go. I think a lot of companies will have an apprenticeship program. Maybe they've got an arrangement with the local trade school for interns that are coming in from the trade school. Okay, that's fine. That's entry level. What about mid-career? What about advanced career? If you want to retain these people, you have to give them bigger and bigger ways to challenge themselves and to grow in the mastery of their craft. I keep coming back to that phrase because it's the one that resonates the most with people.
Yeah, and I think though, you know, when you're trying to keep folks like this young lady, maybe she'll be okay working on that machine for the rest of her life. And there are certainly folks that are wired that way. I think that's less and less people just with our technology and instant gratification, and you know, always looking to, you know, to better themselves. But certainly, you know, old school, 70s, you could have an individual stand on the same machine for 40 years and not ever do another job. I worked alongside a lady. I was there for 8 hours, and I'm like, how in the hell has this lady been on this machine for 40 years doing the exact same thing? Like, nothing changes. And it just blew my mind. But today, if that young lady's she enjoys her job so much, but never is asked, hey, do you want to do something else? What's your, you know, what do you want to be doing in a year, or 3 years, or 5 years? If she's never asked that question, she may fizzle out and go seek happiness elsewhere.
That's a great point. I don't know this individual well. I can tell you that she happened to be an immigrant, so she was thrilled to be doing what she was doing.
Absolutely.
But I also agree that she probably had aspirations beyond that as well. And it may be that she'll be in that role and in that line position for a while, and then innovate on that, or become the trainer of other people who take her position. And then through that, she becomes somebody who's just really good at training because she understands this advanced stuff, and she's highly attentive to things like the safety details around these massive automated pieces of equipment.
Yeah.
So having that conversation with them on a regular basis, I agree, Dustin, is part of helping them see the bigger vision, and allowing your employees to suggest to you, what is the next innovation? What should we be doing as an organization that we're not doing, that would increase safety, that would increase efficiency, that would be innovative, that would put distance between us and our competition, that captures an incoming need that we haven't even recognized yet? Man, when you're having those open conversations, that's when sparks happen. I just get excited thinking about the possibilities.
Yeah, it was fun. I got a text message today because we had a few folks go actually see Wilson basketball today. So Wilson basketball is made close to where we're at, and they met some executives through at Wilson basketball, and we took I think 3 people went today, and they text me and they were just so excited because they got to, you know, bounce an airless basketball, and they got to see their production line, and you know, how just their culture, and they were just so excited about, you know, getting to go do that today. But the cool part for me is they bring other ideas back, you know, to us, and like, hey, they were doing it like this, you know, maybe we should be doing it like that. You know, we're not as efficient in this area. Can we, you know, can we implement this? And it's like, absolutely, whatever. Do it. why would you ever hold anyone back for wanting to improve? And I've worked at those places where, somebody on the floor comes to management with an idea and like, that makes total sense to me. And then I'd have to go get approval, and then the president would shoot it down because it cost $1,000 or whatever. You put all the numbers together in a spreadsheet and show how you'd soak up the $1,000 pretty quickly and still get shot down. And people just stop coming with ideas once their ideas are shut down.
Yeah. Yeah, that is a great point too. It is one thing to listen. It's another thing to create an atmosphere where you can responsibly test and learn.
Yeah.
What would it look like if? Could I get approved for a pilot project to test this and learn from it?
Yep.
Another phrase I've found surprisingly effective in conversations like this, if you're the one trying to sell something upstream, is to say, well, could we audition it and just find out?
Yeah.
I don't know what it is about the word audition that might be different than test. Maybe audition feels more creative and test feels more analytical.
Yeah.
Try it on and let me know if you have similar results. But somehow it changes a little brain chemistry enough to go, well, I could maybe audition it.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a guy again, close to where we're at, and I don't know how, he might be in his 70s or 75 years old. And we were actually renting a space off of the family because we needed the capacity 2 years ago. And I saw this guy driving around the parking lot and had an old pickup truck and a dump bed, and he had like furniture in it. And I just walked up. I had no idea who the guy was. And I'm like, hey, sir, can I help you? He's like, well, I was going to throw some, the stuff in our dumpster or whatever, but it's full. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I introduced myself, and he's like, I'm so-and-so. I'm like, holy shit, this is the guy that started a $100 million company that we're renting the building off of him. And he's in ripped and tattered clothes, and he talked to me for like an hour. And he talked about his sons wanting to do things differently than he wanted to do them. And he goes, my response every time was, yes, let's give it a go. But if my way ends up being better, we're going to go back and do it my way. If your way ends up being better, then we'll continue doing it your way. And I'm like, that's pretty damn cool that he, just gave the reins to his kids. And he's like, it didn't always work out the way that they thought. So we would end up having to, to go back and do it the original way that we were doing it. But he's like, more times than not, they, were able to improve. But that's what engaged my boys into, running the company.
Definitely. And I think that would be true if they were related or not.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Says, what would it be? Talk it through.
Yeah.
We have a process we use with our clients over and over throughout various stages of work, and it's just 3 steps: assess the needs, design what the outcome could look like and how you're going to get there, and then go ahead and install it. Once you've installed it, guess what you go back to? Assess it, design, install, assess, design, install. And design could be an MVP. It could be rapid prototyping on paper. It could be that audition period. Let me just try it for 4 days, for a week, for 4 weeks, and we'll compare the results against the way that we've traditionally been doing it. It's sometimes remarkable what you'll learn and innovate in a process of doing that. As long as you do it safely and responsibly. Put some boundaries on it that make sense. But if it's not going to burn the place down, what does it hurt to try it sometimes?
Yeah, I can't agree more. And I just think in our own process, there's so many different things that people have, figured out that have made the process better or even doable. We've had a couple of those situations where we've taken something on and we're like, oh, we shouldn't have done this. And then 2 days later, somebody figures it out and we're beating the rate than what we thought we should have been. And it's like, but for me, I just get out of their way. Like I do feel like in my situation, if I'm on the line and I'm helping, everyone's looking at me for the answer. And I'm like, no, I don't have the answers. That's why you're here, is because you have the answers. I don't have the answers. I'm just the guy here helping. So sometimes I have to remove myself because they will feel like all the answers have to come from me, even if I say they don't. They're constantly looking for, instant affirmation. It's like, no, try it. If it doesn't work, then we'll stop doing that and we'll try this, or we'll try something else. But it's really fun to see that as well.
That's a great culture that you're nurturing there. That you're demonstrating for them too. Look, I'm just a human, same as you are. Put my pants on, one leg at a time. I might have more experience in this. You might have more experience in that, but let's work on it together. And that is such a generous posture to have. Good for you.
Yeah. Well, and I certainly can't take credit for everything. Ashley, that is our ops manager. She's the go to culture and wanting to build people, and she's military. Just a phenomenal person. She brings ideas all the time. She did. I'm probably going to screw this up, and she'll tell me. I think she called it pay it forward, or maybe there's another term for that. But we just went around, like, she and her team went around in the community and just passed out cookies. And like, I feel like a lot of manufacturing companies would be like, "You're fucking doing what? I'm not passing out cookies in the community." And I'm like, "Yeah, whatever you want to do." She's like, "Are you serious?" I'm like, "Yeah." Like, you think it's a good idea and we're not missing any deliveries, then yeah, let's do it. And we had so many people just, really brag about it, and things like that. I thought it was a really cool thing. And we're in such a small little town that everyone knows who she is.
I think that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Positive community engagement. And I'm going to guess that for the employees or the team members who went with her to do cookie deliveries, that it was reinvigorating for them.
Yeah. Got them out of the office and off the floor, and they were able to get out, and it was fun for them. So that's what matters.
Yeah, we forget sometimes. We're heads down in our work. We're inside those four walls of our building, and we forget there's a whole community out there that is in some way touched, particularly in a small town, the way that you described it. It's touched by what happens in this building, the commerce that comes out of this building, the ideas that come out of this building, the finances that flow in and out of this building. It really reverberates through the community. So, hey, let's go be visible in the community every now and then. I think that's a fantastic habit.
Yep, absolutely. So, well, we've gotten all the way into this. We've had quite a few challenges. I feel like we fixed them finally. But I introduced you and didn't really tell people your company or how to get a hold of you or anything like that. And we'll put everything in the description. We also will do a blog and all that fun stuff. But if you will tell folks what your company is and what your focus is and how to get a hold of you.
Sure. The company's name is Provoke Better. We don't go for perfect. We go for better. And that's how you make iterative progress.
Incremental really differences.
That's right. Nothing crazy and dramatic. This is not like an HGTV reveal. Provoke Better. But that still has meaning, of course. And we love to work with manufacturers, tech, and science-related companies because they often have these really complex ideas and processes and concepts that they need to distill into de-jargoned messages and uncomplicated processes. And that's what we love to do, using that three-step process I described a moment ago, where we assess, design, and then help you install. And so we're generally working arm in arm with that company, kind of embedded with them for a period of time. Could be 6 months, could be 2 years until they get that next stage of their growth secured and feel like they've got good momentum to continue on without us.
What's the perfect fit for company size that you like to work with?
Great question. We love to work with companies that are typically through $3 million and up.
Okay.
They wouldn't consider themselves in growth stage the way that traditional growth, like massive growth is, but rather that steady growth, where they're looking for incremental changes to become more resilient, to improve their company culture, for example, their recruitment campaign, their marketing campaign, some of the operational processes. One of the companies, as an example, that we worked with starting last year went from $3 to $4 million last year. They're on track right now. We're recording this in August, and they're on track this year to hit about 5.2 at the end of this year. Yeah. So good growth.
Yeah.
Right. Not massive, tripled the growth, but good, steady, sustainable growth.
Yeah.
And that's a beautiful place for us to work with. And often we're working with founder operators as well.
Okay.
And that's significant, I think, Dustin, because the founder of the organization, that individual can sometimes have ideas that unintentionally kind of lock the company in a certain thing because they think that, unlike you, all good ideas need to come from them. Sounds like you've already
I know I'm not that smart. So that's easy for me. I learned that at an early age.
So the founder operator who is still working in there, that engineer or that tech developer,
Yeah.
Sometimes they can unintentionally cap the growth of their own organization because they just don't know that there's a different way to do it.
Yep.
And so we come in and we make them uncomfortable in the best possible way and help them get to where they need to go to. So the company doesn't have to depend on them quite so much as an individual.
Is there a founder owner that is more difficult to make realize that, like an engineer or a doctor or somebody with a PhD and whatever their profession is, or even just the guy that invented something that maybe does masters or even undergrad, or even somebody that doesn't have an education at all, they just really good at their craft, and now that they own it, have you found that one personality type struggles with that more than the other?
The high data people are perhaps the most difficult until you show them the data about having more options.
Mm-hmm.
If you're somebody who loves to be in the lab, for example, but you're also needing to hire, fire, figure out if the marketing is okay, make sure that recruitment campaign went out, talk to some new clients, etc. You're fractionalized.
Mm-hmm.
And if you really love being in the lab, we, Provoke Better, are going to work with you and your company to make sure that you've got stunt doubles as much as possible in the areas that you don't love to do, so you can get back to the lab.
Yeah.
It's really about having choices. We're not forcing anybody out of a position just because that's like an invented goal.
Yeah.
The goal is to have options.
Yeah.
You want to be able to have a business that you can grow while you outgrow your busyness.
Yeah. Well, and that's one thing that I read in your bio that really made sense to me is by doing less, sometimes you end up doing more. And I do think that and we talk about that all the time in Vistage, where sometimes we're our own worst enemy because we get into the middle of everything, and then that ends up being a bottleneck because you're trying to do too many things, and you can't be great at sales, great at accounting, great at whatever else, production, being in the lab. You can't give 100% to all of those things. And once you once you're able to get out of your own way, then you can start doing other things in your life and not work 80 or 90 hours. And I think that so many, especially owner founders, get into that where, like, I haven't been on vacation in 10 years. Like, why? Well, because I'm too busy. The place will fall apart if I'm not there. My dad, my grandma and grandpa owned a Dairy Queen, and they literally thought that people would stop buying cheeseburgers if they were not in there. And it's like, I just saw it growing up. I mean, they worked every day, 7 days a week, like 15-hour days. And it would just, and there's so many, people that do that own their own companies.
I appreciate a great work ethic as much as the next person.
Yep.
At the same time, it is not sustainable. And furthermore, Dustin, I would say to you, it's not responsible.
Yeah.
In the previous company that I owned, I had a very small team. Ran a video marketing company. We had 8 people at our highest.
Mm-hmm.
But even then, I realized that if I was out of work, if I was not able to come to work, I had a medical incident, I was in an accident, and I couldn't come into the office for as little as 8 weeks. If that were to happen, my entire company and the lives of the people who chose to work there would be jeopardized. It would be in danger. And I thought, this is not responsible, Whitney. These people have put their trust in you as a leader. The clients have put their trust in you. Why are you making yourself a single point of failure for so many of these parts of the business?
That's a very good point.
I didn't realize I was doing it.
Yeah.
And what drew my attention to it was because that exact scenario happened to my parents. I mentioned they own their own company as well. They run a zoo, and it's got 75 acres and over 1,000 animals and 45 employees. And they were in a serious car accident several years ago. And my dad was in shock trauma. He was in the hospital, and then he was in rehabilitation for months. My mom also went through the hospital. She got out sooner, and her medical health journey was a few weeks instead of several months. But the operations at the park were wobbly while they were gone. I needed to step in. My brother needed to step in. Had a lot of things that were not, we got through because the mission alignment was strong, but it was rougher than it needed to be because too many of the responsibilities, the authorities, and the knowledge were locked up into their heads instead of dispersed throughout the team. It wasn't something they did intentionally, but if you don't intentionally disperse it, you are creating a risk situation for your organization.
Yeah, hire yourself out of a job. You got to get away from it sometime.
It's a much shorter way to put that. I should have.
No, but yours is way more eloquent than mine. So we'll take yours. I'm a pretty simple Neanderthal sometimes. So, well, I've had a ton of fun. I cannot appreciate your patience anymore. I've never had that many challenges before. So yes, Luke, you do have work to do, but I'm sure it'll sound wonderful when we're done. We've talked about some incredible things. I would even invite you back to talk about some other subject because I think it's fun, and we talked about that in the beginning, so we can tackle something else. If somebody's listening and wants us to discuss some topic that we didn't or dive a little deeper, then that'd be great as well. Just reach out to us and let us know. Cool.
Bring it. I love a good challenge. I'll also put some resources on my website for the listeners of your show, Dustin.
Okay, great.
So if you go to provokebetter.com/MFG Monkey, the name of your podcast, I'll put 3 resources on there related to our conversation today. One will be a webinar replay of Recruit Like a Marketer. So you get tips and more examples about how to take your current recruitment ads that may not be working for you and turn them into something that puts right fit candidates at the center of their own adventure. I've also got an AI tool that I've custom crafted that helps you write better job descriptions, onboarding, and SOPs. So if you want a really quick head start, I've got a custom ChatGPT ready for you. Those are free resources. And then finally, if anybody would like to schedule an assessment to find what their high value opportunity could be for their manufacturing company, there'll be a link to schedule a call with me to do that. No charge, no obligation, no heavy sales.
Yeah, and we'll put all the same links in the description. So if you're listening to it rolling down the road, you can go and find the description and we'll have it on our website as well. So fantastic! Thank you so much. Great to meet you.
You too, Dustin. I'll talk to you again soon.
Thanks, everyone, for joining us for this episode of MFG Monkey. If you have any questions or suggestions for future episodes, please email them to us at info@mfgmonkey.com.